Everyone assumed Claire Hartley knew the risks. Single mother, two little girls at home, working nights at a club in Los Angeles where military men drank until closing time. October 1980. The kind of job people judge before they ask questions. But when her body was found on a desert highway outside Ridgecrest, strangled and discarded like she never mattered, the assumptions stopped. Because whoever killed her didn't just take her life. He walked away. For 44 years. In 2024, they finally learned his name. By then, he'd been dead for 4 years. If you believe some mysteries stay buried forever, subscribe to Greg's Cold Files and tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. Part 1. October 17th, 1980, Friday afternoon. Claire Hartley stood in her small Van Nuys apartment watching her daughters play. Emma, 5 years old, was teaching Amy, 3, how to stack building blocks without knocking them over. Amy's face was scrunched in concentration, tongue sticking out. "Mommy, look how tall!" Emma pointed at their tower. Claire smiled. "That's beautiful, sweetie. Put it on the fridge when Grandma gets here, okay?" "Are you working tonight?" Emma's face fell. "Just tonight and tomorrow. Then Sunday we'll go to the beach. I promise." The knock on the door was Helen, Claire's mother, arriving right on time. "Hi, Mom." Claire grabbed her purse, checked her keys. "You look tired," Helen said. "I'm fine. Long week." In 1980, promises like that mattered. Single mothers didn't have many options. Claire had been working at Dempsey's, a bar in the valley, for 9 months. The tips were better than the diner she'd left. Not great, but enough to keep the lights on and food on the table. Helen studied her daughter. At 52, she'd raised Claire alone after her husband left. She recognized that particular kind of tired, the exhaustion of doing everything alone. The girls asking about their father again? No, not this week. Claire grabbed her purse, checked for her keys. "He sent a check last month. First one in 4 months. "You deserve better than that." "I know, but I've got what I've got." Claire kissed both girls. "Be good for Grandma. I love you." "Love you, Mommy." She walked out, not knowing it was the last time she'd see them. Dempsey's bar sat on a corner in Van Nuys, wedged between a hardware store and a laundromat. The neon sign had been there since 1967, half the letters dead. Inside was all dark wood, vinyl booths, cigarette smoke thick enough to taste. This was 1980, the tail end of the Vietnam era, the beginning of Reagan's America. Military bases dotted California, China Lake Naval Weapons Center 70 miles northeast in the Mojave, Edwards Air Force Base 40 miles east. On weekends, servicemen made the drive to Los Angeles looking for somewhere to drink, somewhere to forget the desert heat and the monotony of base life. Dempsey's was one of those places. Claire arrived at 5:45 p.m., 15 minutes early like always. The owner, Jack Dempsey, no relation to the boxer, he'd say, was setting up the register. "Evening, Claire. You ready for Friday night?" "Ready as I'll ever be." Rita Morales, the other bartender, came in at 6 ma. She'd been working there 3 years, knew the rhythm. "Another weekend in paradise," Rita said, tying her apron. By 8 p.m., the place was filling. Factory workers from the industrial parks, construction crews, regulars who'd been coming for years, and the military crowd. You could spot them. The haircuts gave them away even in civilian clothes. Clean-shaven, posture too straight. They'd order beer, sit in groups, talk loud about nothing important. Around 8:50, Claire noticed him walk in. Her stomach dropped. He took his usual spot at the end of the bar, ordered a beer from Rita, sat there, watching. Rita noticed Claire's expression. "That guy again?" "Yeah." "Want me to tell Jack?" "He hasn't done anything wrong. Technically." But technically wasn't the point. For 4 months now, he'd been coming in. Same routine every time. Sit at the end of the bar, order one beer, make it last for hours. Watch Claire work, and ask her out. She'd said no the first time, politely. He'd smiled, said, okay, maybe next time. There'd been a next time, and a time after that, and another. She'd stopped being polite by the third rejection, been direct by the fifth, been blunt by the seventh. He kept coming back. Rita leaned closer. You know his name? No, he always pays cash, never signs a tab. Military? Has to be. Haircut, the way he sits, probably one of the bases. You want me to handle his section tonight? Claire shook her head. I can't avoid him forever. It's fine. But it wasn't fine. Every time she saw him, her skin crawled. Not because he was aggressive, he wasn't. Not because he was rude, he was always polite. Because he wouldn't stop. Because no didn't seem to register. Because he looked at her like she was a problem to solve, not a person with agency. The night moved fast. Drinks poured. Orders shouted over the jukebox. Claire stayed busy, stayed at the opposite end of the bar. Around 11:30, a group of sailors came in. Young guys, early 20s, loud and already half drunk. They took a booth, ordered pitchers of beer. Claire brought the first round. One of them, baby-faced with a southern accent, grinned at her. You single? No, she lied. That's a shame. You're real pretty. Thanks. Enjoy your beer. She walked away before he could press. This was part of the job. Deflect. Smile. Keep moving. At midnight, she couldn't avoid it any more. The man at the end of the bar caught her attention. Excuse me. She walked over, keeping the bar between them. What can I get you? I was wondering if you'd thought about my offer. What offer? Coffee, conversation, getting to know each other. Claire set down the glass she was holding. I've told you before, I'm not interested. You don't even know me. And I don't want to. I've been clear about that. His expression didn't change. No anger, no frustration, just persistence. Everyone deserves a chance. I've given you my answer. Multiple times. It's not going to change. Why not? Because I said so. That should be enough. She walked away, felt his eyes on her back. Rita came over. You okay? Yeah, just tired of that conversation. You should really tell Jack to ban him. Maybe. Closing time came at 2 a.m. The last customers stumbled out into the night. Jack locked the front doors. Claire and Rita cleaned, wiped tables, emptied ashtrays, counted receipts. In 1980, this was normal. Women working late-night shifts, walking to their cars alone in dark parking lots. The world hadn't changed much yet. Wouldn't for years. By 2:20, they were done. Jack paid them in cash. Claire folded $72 in tips, good night, and put it in her purse. You coming to the diner? Rita asked. A few of us are getting pancakes. No thanks, I'm exhausted. Just want to go home. You sure? It's late. I'm fine. See you tomorrow. They walked out together. Rita's car was near the entrance under a working streetlight. Claire's was in the back row. The streetlight back there had been broken for 3 weeks. She'd mentioned it to Jack twice. Nothing happened. Be careful, Rita called, getting in her car. Always am. Rita drove off. Claire walked toward the back of the lot, heels clicking on asphalt. October in Los Angeles, still warm, even at 2:30 a.m. The air smelled like exhaust and jasmine from someone's yard nearby. She reached her car, a 1974 Ford Pinto she'd bought used 2 years ago, fumbled in her purse for keys. Behind her, footsteps. She turned. He was there, 10 feet away, walking toward her. What are you doing here? Her voice came out sharper than intended. I wanted to talk to you. without everyone around. I told you inside. I'm not interested. He stepped closer. You've been avoiding me for months. Because I'm not interested. How many times do I have to say it? I think you're just scared of getting to know someone. Claire's hand tightened on her keys. I'm not scared. I'm just not interested in you. There's a difference. Why not? I've been respectful, patient, and I've been clear. The answer is no. She turned to unlock her car. His hand grabbed her arm. Don't touch me. She yanked away. Just listen. Let go. His other hand grabbed her shoulder. She tried to scream. His palm covered her mouth. She bit down, hard, tasted blood. He yelled, jerked his hand back. Then both hands were around her throat. She fought, clawed at his face, his neck, his hands. Her nails found skin, scraped deep. She felt flesh under her fingernails, but she couldn't breathe. The world started to gray at the edges. Her legs weakened. The parking lot spun. Everything went dark. Saturday morning, 6:02 a.m. The call came through Highway Patrol Dispatch. Body on Highway 395, northbound shoulder near Ridgecrest. Female, recent. Deputy Carl Morrison grabbed his coffee, still steaming, and drove out. 25 minutes later, he pulled onto the shoulder behind a semi-truck, emergency lights cutting through the dawn. The driver stood by his rig, chain-smoking, hands shaking. I almost didn't stop, he said. Thought maybe it was an animal, but when I got closer... Morrison walked over. Young woman, mid-20s, dark hair spread across gravel, no visible blood, just the bruising, deep purple marks on her throat, thumb-shaped, finger-shaped. He radioed it in. This is Morrison. We've got a homicide. By 9:30 a.m., Detective Martin Cross was standing at the scene. 34 years old, 9 years with the Kern County Sheriff's Department. He'd worked robberies, assaults, missing persons. This was his second murder as lead. He studied the location. Empty desert in every direction. Highway 395 ran north from Los Angeles toward Ridgecrest and the towns that serviced China Lake Naval Weapons Center. No houses nearby, no businesses, just scrubland and creosote bushes. Whoever left her here knew this road. At the county morgue in Bakersfield, Dr. Patricia Nguyen worked methodically. Cross watched through the observation window. Manual strangulation, Nguyen said into her recorder. Sustained pressure over approximately 2 to 3 minutes. Significant defensive wounds present. Deep scratches on both palms, 3 broken nails on the right hand. Epithelial cells recovered from under all 10 fingernails. Cross leaned forward. She fought hard. Very hard. She got good samples of his skin. In a few years, we might be able to use DNA analysis on this. For now, I'm preserving everything. The victim's belongings sat on the evidence table. Cross opened her purse. Wallet with cash intact, $87, lipstick, tampons, car keys, a photo of 2 little girls at a park, squinting into the sun. He found the license. Claire Marie Hartley. DOB, 4-23, 1957, age 23. Address, Van Nuys. Cross picked up the phone. LAPD, Van Nuys Division. I need a welfare check. Possible homicide victim. 2 minor children may be at the residence. Helen Hartley was making breakfast when the phone rang at 11:15 a.m. Emma and Amy were coloring at the kitchen table, still in their pajamas. Hello? Mrs. Hartley? This is Detective Martin Cross with the Kern County Sheriff's Department. I need to speak with you about your daughter, Claire Hartley. Helen's hand tightened on the phone. What's wrong? A pause. Too long. Ma'am, I'm very sorry. We found your daughter's body this morning on Highway 395 near Ridgecrest. She's deceased. The room tilted. Helen grabbed the counter. No, that can't be right. She's working. She's picking up the girls this afternoon. Mrs. Hartley, I need you to sit down. Helen sat at the kitchen table. Emma looked up from her coloring. Grandma? Who's on the phone? Helen couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. Cross's voice continued. Your daughter was murdered. We found her early this morning. LAPD is sending officers to her apartment to secure it. The girls are with you? Yes, they're right here. Keep them there. Don't tell them yet. I'll need you to come to Bakersfield for formal identification, but not today. Today you need to be with Emma and Amy. Helen's voice broke. Who did this? Who killed my daughter? We don't know yet, ma'am, but I promise you, I'm going to find out. After hanging up, Helen sat at the table. Emma and Amy were watching her. Grandma? Why are you crying? Helen pulled them close, held them tight. Didn't know how to tell them their mother wasn't coming home. By 2 p.m., Cross was at Dempsey's bar. The place was closed, but Jack Dempsey let him in. I'm here about Claire Hartley. Jack's face went pale. Claire? What about her? She's dead, murdered, probably in your parking lot early this morning. Jack sat down hard on a bar stool. Jesus Christ! When did you last see her? Last night. She worked her shift, closed up with Rita around 2:20. They walked out together. I locked up after them. She seemed fine, normal. Was anyone bothering her last night? Jack looked away. That hesitation told Cross everything. There's been this guy, Jack said slowly. Cross pulled out his notepad. Tell me about him. Military. Been coming in for months. Always sits at the end of the bar, always watches Claire. Rita said he's asked her out a bunch of times. Name? I don't have one. He pays cash every time. Describe him. White, late 20s, maybe 5'10", average build, short hair, military cut, clean shaven. Honestly, Detective, he looked everyone who worked Friday. Rita Morales came in at 4 p.m. for her shift. Cross was waiting in a booth. She sat down across from him. He told her. Rita's hands started shaking. Oh, God, no. I need you to think carefully. Was anyone unusual watching Claire last night? That guy, the one who's been coming in for months. He was here. End of the bar. Same as always. Describe him. White, late 20s, short military haircut, clean shaven. Nothing really stood out about him except the way he stared at Claire. It was intense. Did he interact with her? Around midnight, I saw him try to talk to her. She went over. They talked for maybe a minute. When she came back, she looked annoyed, said he'd asked her out again. What did she say to him? She didn't tell me word for word, just that she'd told him no for like the 100th time. Did you see him leave? Yeah, maybe 12:45. He put cash on the bar and walked out. Did you see his car leave? Rita shook her head. No, we were slammed. I wasn't watching the parking lot. After closing, what happened? We cleaned up. Jack paid us around 2:20. Claire and I walked out together. I asked if she wanted to come get pancakes with some of us. She said no, she was tired. My car was up front. Hers was in back. Rita's voice cracked. Under that broken streetlight, I should have walked her to her car. This isn't your fault, Cross said. Did Claire ever mention this guy's name? No, I don't think she knew it. Over the next week, Cross interviewed everyone. Staff, regulars, people who'd been at Dempsey's Friday night. A regular named Eddie Santos remembered, Friday night, there was this guy staring at Claire. Whole time. Didn't touch his beer for like an hour. Just watched her. Another regular, Maria Vega. Claire mentioned him to me a few weeks ago. Said some military guy wouldn't take no for an answer. She was getting uncomfortable but didn't want to make a scene. Tom Chen, another regular. I saw him leave around 12:30, maybe 1, but I didn't see if his car actually left the lot. Cross compiled the description. White male, 25-30, 5'10", 165, 175 lbs, short brown hair, military haircut, clean-shaven, no distinguishing marks. He sent it to China Lake Naval Weapons Center, Edwards Air Force Base, George Air Force Base, Vandenberg Air Force Base. The responses came back bureaucratic and slow. Personnel records are classified. Privacy Act restrictions. Need specific names, not general descriptions. Need warrants for individual service members. Cross pushed. This is a murder investigation. The military pushed back. Standard procedures apply. He was stuck. Cross stood in Dempsey's parking lot at 3 a.m. one night, trying to see what happened. Claire walks out, heads to her car, back row. Dark. The streetlight's been broken for weeks. Someone's waiting. He approaches. She turns, recognizes him, tells him to leave her alone. He grabs her. She fights. He strangles her, right here on this asphalt. Then what? He can't leave her here. Too obvious, too close to the bar. He puts her in his car, drives north, toward the desert, toward the bases. Why Highway 395? Why Ridgecrest? Because he knows the area, because he's stationed at China Lake, because that highway is empty at 3 a.m. Cross processed Claire's car. No struggle inside, no blood, no foreign fibers, nothing. He searched her apartment. No threatening letters, no stalker evidence. Phone records showed calls to her mother, her babysitter, the gas company, a dentist. Nothing unusual. Bank records. Last paycheck deposited 2 weeks prior. Last withdrawal, $40 from an ATM on October 16th. The physical evidence sat in storage at the Kern County Evidence Facility. Skin cells from under Claire's fingernails, fibers from her clothing, photographs of the scene. In 1980, DNA analysis was science fiction. But Dr. Nguyen preserved everything anyway. By summer 1981, the case went cold. Helen moved Emma and Amy into her small house in Glendale. The girls asked questions constantly. When is Mommy coming home? Where did Mommy go? Why can't we see her? Helen tried to answer honestly, age-appropriately. Mommy had an accident. She's not coming back. What kind of accident? A bad one, sweetheart. Emma was old enough to sense something worse than accident. Amy was young enough to just feel the absence, their apartment gone, their toys packed away, their mother simply not there. This was 1980. Single mothers were common enough by then, but society still judged. Women who worked nights in bars, women who raised kids alone. The whispers Helen heard at the grocery store. What kind of mother works at a bar? Helen wanted to scream at them. A mother who's doing her best, a mother who didn't deserve to die in a parking lot. But she stayed quiet, focused on the girls. Cross visited every few months. Always the same update, still working it. No new leads, haven't forgotten. In 1983, Helen asked, "Do you think you'll ever catch him?" Cross hesitated. "I don't know, ma'am, but I won't stop trying." The girls are starting to forget her. Emma still has some memories, but Amy— Helen's voice broke. Amy doesn't remember her at all. You're keeping her alive for them. That matters. Does it? When the man who killed her is out there living his life? Cross had no answer for that. The years passed. Emma and Amy grew up. This was the 1980s, sliding into the 1990s, the Cold War ending, MTV and personal computers and the beginning of DNA forensics. But none of it helped Claire's case. Emma remembered fragments, the smell of her mother's shampoo, the way she sang along to the radio, off-key, loud, happy. How she'd tuck Emma in at night, whisper, "I love you to the moon and back," By the time Emma was 15, those memories were fading, replaced by photographs Helen kept on every surface. Claire at Emma's first birthday, Claire holding newborn Amy, Claire laughing at a family barbecue, head thrown back, caught mid-joy. Amy remembered nothing. Her mother was a photograph, a story, an absence that shaped everything but had no face, no voice, no substance. In 1995, Emma asked Helen, "Do you think they'll ever find him?" Helen was washing dishes. She stopped, hands in soapy water. "I used to think so. Now, I don't know. Does it even matter anymore? She's still gone. It matters, not to bring her back, but for justice, for closure." "What's closure?" Amy asked. She was 18, home from community college. "Knowing," Helen said. "Just knowing who took her away from us." Helen died in March 2016. Heart failure. She was 88. Emma and Amy went through her house, found boxes of Claire's things Helen had saved, clothes that still smelled faintly of that shampoo, jewelry, letters Claire had written to Helen from a summer camp when she was 12, photographs, and newspaper clippings, dozens of them, articles about Claire's murder, follow-ups, cold case features. Helen had saved everything. "She never stopped looking," Amy said, holding a 1987 article about advances in forensic science. Emma found Helen's journals, years of entries about Claire, about missing her, about hoping for answers. The last entry was dated March 8, 2016. 36 years. Emma has 3 children now. Amy's engaged. They've built good lives. Claire would be so proud. I still hope before I die to know who did this. But I'm tired. So tired. Maybe some questions don't get answered." She died 4 days later. Cross retired in 2014 after 39 years with the department. On his last day, he went to the evidence facility, found Claire's case file, made a copy of everything. The evidence tech noticed. "Cross, you can't take that. It's my last day. Fire me." He carried the box to his car, drove home to his house in Bakersfield, put it in his garage. Late nights, he'd pull it out, review everything, look for what he'd missed. He never found it. In April 2018, the news broke. Golden State Killer arrested after 44 years. Genetic genealogy, DNA uploaded to public databases, family trees constructed, suspect identified from a fourth cousin match. Cross watched the press conference, then called the sheriff's department. "Cold case unit. This is Martin Cross, retired. I worked a 1980 homicide. Claire Hartley. We have preserved DNA from the killer. I want to submit it for genetic genealogy." The detective who answered was Lisa Tran, young, enthusiastic. "Let me pull the file. What's the case number?" Cross gave her everything. "I'll look into this and call you back." 2 years of bureaucracy, budget constraints, backlogs, competing priorities. Cross called every month, polite, persistent. Finally, in January 2021, Tran called back. "We got approval. The lab agreed to take the case pro bono. We're sending the sample next week." Cross sat down in his garage, surrounded by boxes of old case files. "After all this time, if the sample's viable, we have a real shot." The lab received the evidence in February 2021. 40-year-old epithelial cells, frozen since 1980. The extraction worked. They built a DNA profile, uploaded it to GED Match. Hit. Fourth cousin. The genealogists started building the family tree. Part 2. The genealogy process took 2.5 years. The team started with the fourth cousin, a woman in Oregon who'd uploaded her DNA to find distant relatives. She had no idea her genetic information would help solve a murder. They traced her family tree backward to common ancestors born in the 1880s, then forward through every descendant, birth records, death certificates, marriage licenses, census data, newspaper archives, immigration records. The tree grew exponentially. Hundreds of branches, thousands of names. By September 2023, they'd narrowed it to 7 men, all born between 1955 and 1959, all with Southern California connections in 1980, all with potential military service. One name kept appearing in the analysis: David William Brennan. Detective Tran pulled his file in October 2023, born June 8, 1956, Bakersfield, California. Father, mechanic. Mother, schoolteacher. Enlisted U.S. Navy, July 1976, age 20. Stationed at China Lake Naval Weapons Center, March 1978 through October 1982. Rating, electronics technician 2nd class. Performance evaluations, satisfactory to excellent. Commendations, 4, including 1 for technical innovation. Disciplinary actions, none. Personal notes from commanding officers described him as competent, reserved, keeps to himself, no problems. Honorably discharged, October 1982. Moved to San Diego, then Florida, 1987. Died November 3, 2020, St. Petersburg, Florida. Cause, acute myocardial infarction, age 64. Tran pulled his duty logs from October 1980. Liberty granted, 1,800 hours, Friday, October 17, 1980. Return required, ZO 600 hours, Sunday, October 19, 1980. Gate logs showed departed base, 1817 hours, Friday, returned 0548 hours, Sunday. The timeline was perfect. Dempsey's bar closed at 2 a.m., Saturday. Claire left around 2:20. Van Nuys to Ridgecrest was roughly 2 hours. If Brennan killed Claire around 2:30, drove north, dumped her body around 4:30, he could easily be back at China Lake by 6 a.m. Tran started tracking down people who'd known him. Most of his Navy buddies were dead, unreachable, or had no memory of him. One, Robert Bobby Kim, was living in Sacramento. She called him. "Mr. Kim, I'm Detective Tran with Kern County Sheriff. I'm investigating a 1980 homicide. You served at China Lake with David Brennan. Do you remember him?" Long pause. "Dave Brennan? Yeah, I remember him. Why?" "His name came up in connection with a murder. A woman killed in Los Angeles in October 1980. Silence. Then, "Jesus, are you serious?" "Yes, sir. What can you tell me about him?" Kim exhaled slowly. He was an odd guy. Smart, really smart with electronics. Could fix anything. But socially, he didn't quite fit. Didn't make friends easy. Kept to himself mostly." "Did he ever talk about going to Los Angeles?" "Yeah. Most of us stayed on base or went to Ridgecrest, maybe Bakersfield. Dave drove all the way to L.A. almost every weekend. Said he liked the drive, liked getting away from the base." "Did he mention why he went there?" "He talked about a bar, in the valley somewhere. Said the bartender was pretty. I remember asking if he was dating her. He got this weird look on his face and said, 'Not yet,' like it was inevitable." Tran's pulse quickened. "Do you remember anything else he said about her?" "He said she was playing hard to get, that she needed time to realize they were right for each other. It creeped me out even then, the way he talked about her like she was a puzzle he was solving." "Did he mention her name?" "No, just the bartender." "Mr. Kim, did Brennan's behavior change after October 1980? Kim thought about it. "Yeah, actually. He stopped going to L.A., stopped talking about the bartender, got quieter, if that was even possible. I asked him once if something happened with the girl. He just said it didn't work out." Tran emailed Kim a photo of Claire. Kim called back 30 minutes later, voice shaking. "That's her. I'm almost certain. Dave showed me a photo once, said he'd taken it without her knowing, which should have been a red flag. But we were young and stupid. I didn't think much of it then." Tran needed final confirmation. She tracked Brennan's family. First marriage, Angela Brennan, née Morrison, 1984-1989. Divorced, no children. Angela died in 2015. Second marriage, she called her in November 2023. Ms. Brennan, I'm Detective Lisa Tran with the Kern County Sheriff's Department in California. I'm calling about your father, David Brennan. My father's been dead for 3 years. I know, ma'am. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm investigating a 1980 homicide, and your father's name has come up through DNA evidence. I need to ask you some questions and request a DNA sample to confirm our findings. Long silence. You think my dad killed someone? We have genetic evidence suggesting involvement. Your DNA would help us verify. This is voluntary, but it would help tremendously. What? Who was killed? A woman named Claire Hartley, 23 years old, mother of 2. She was murdered in October 1980 near Los Angeles. Your father was stationed at China Lake at the time. Jessica's voice was barely audible. Are you sure? We're building the case. Your DNA would help us be certain. Yes, I'll do it. When do you need it? As soon as possible. I can have a technician meet you. The forensic tech met Jessica at Tampa General the next day, swabbed her cheek, sealed it. She signed the paperwork. Afterward, she sat in her car in the parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel. Her father, a murderer. She tried to remember the man she'd known. David Brennan had been a ghost in her life, physically present but emotionally absent. After her parents divorced when she was 13, she'd seen him every other weekend. Awkward visits filled with silence. He'd lived alone in a small apartment in St. Petersburg. No decorations, no personal touches, just furniture and a TV. She'd tried connecting with him, asked about his Navy service once when she was 15. What was it like? Fine. Did you like it? It was a job. Did you make friends? Some. That was it. Conversation over. Her mother had explained it once. Your father isn't good with emotions. He's not a bad man. He just can't connect the way most people do. By 18, Jessica had stopped trying. They'd talk on birthdays. He'd send cards at Christmas. Nothing more. He'd died alone in his apartment. Heart attack while watching the news. The neighbors found him 2 days later. Jessica had arranged the funeral. 14 people came, neighbors who barely knew him, former co-workers who remembered him as quiet. She'd gone through his apartment afterward, found nothing personal, no photos, no letters, no diary, just the accumulation of a life lived without attachment. Now this. 2 weeks later, Tran called. Ms. Brennan, the DNA results are back. It's a conclusive match. Your father's DNA is identical to the DNA recovered from Claire Hartley's crime scene in 1980. Jessica closed her eyes. You're absolutely certain? Yes, the probability of error is less than 1 in a trillion. I'm very sorry. What happens now? We're notifying the victim's family. We'll hold a press conference. I wanted you to know before it becomes public. Did he? Jessica's voice cracked. Do you know what happened? Tran explained. The bar, the repeated rejections, the attack, the drive to the desert. Jessica felt sick. Did he ever mention it? Did you find anything in his papers? We don't have access to his personal effects. That would be up to you. After hanging up, Jessica drove to her storage unit. She'd kept a few boxes from her father's apartment, things she couldn't throw away but didn't want to look at. She opened them now. Old Navy uniforms, electronics manuals, a box of tools, commendation letters from his commanding officers. One letter, dated 1981, praised his dedication and focus, particularly in the difficult months following his return from extended liberty in late 1980. Jessica read it 3 times. Difficult months. Late 1980. Right after he'd murdered Claire. She kept searching, found a small notebook, Opened it. Electronics notes, circuit diagrams, technical specifications, and on the last page, written in her father's neat handwriting, "Some things can't be fixed. Some circuits stay broken." Dated November 1980. Jessica sat on the floor of the storage unit and cried. Cross got trans call in December 2023. "We found him, David William Brennan, China Lake, 1978-1982. DNA match is conclusive. He died in 2020. Cross sat down at his kitchen table. 43 years. "You're certain?" "Absolutely. Timeline matches, geographic profile matches. Former co-worker confirms he frequented bars in the valley and talked obsessively about a bartender. DNA is definitive." "What about prosecution?" "Can't prosecute a dead man, but we can give Claire's family answers." "Emma and Amy, they're in their 40s now. I need to be there when you tell them." "Of course." Cross hung up, sat there for a long time. He'd solved it, finally. But it felt hollow. Justice delayed so long it became something else entirely. Emma Hartley Chen was at her office in Pasadena, she managed a dental practice, when Tran called. "Ms. Chen, I'm Detective Lisa Tran with Kern County Sheriff. I'm calling about your mother's case." Emma's breath caught. "Did you find something?" "We've identified your mother's killer, David William Brennan. He was stationed at China Lake in 1980. The DNA evidence is conclusive." Emma sat down. "Was?" "He died in 2020, ma'am. I'm very sorry. There won't be a trial, but we wanted you to know we've solved the case." Emma started crying, not relief. Something more complicated. Grief mixed with anger, mixed with exhaustion. "Can you tell me what happened?" "I'd like to meet with you and your sister in person. Detective Cross, who originally worked the case, would like to be there as well." "Yes. When?" "March 8th. Military records." "This is David Brennan," she said, sliding a 1980 military photo across. Emma stared at it. Average face, nothing memorable. This man had strangled her mother. Tran walked them through it. The genealogy process, the co-worker testimony, the duty logs, the psychological profile built from interviews with his ex-wives and daughter. His first wife said he was emotionally distant. His second wife said he couldn't connect the way most people do. His daughter said he seemed incapable of forming real attachments. "Sociopath?" Amy asked. "Not clinically diagnosed, but the pattern fits. He fixated on your mother. Staff at the bar said he came in repeatedly over 4 months, always watching her, always asking her out, despite clear rejections. We believe he interpreted her professional friendliness as personal interest." Cross spoke. "I'm sorry it took 43 years. I worked this case until I retired, kept the file after. When genetic genealogy became possible, I pushed to have the evidence tested." Emma reached across the table, took his hand. "Thank you. Thank you for not forgetting her." "She deserved better than this," Cross said. "Better than a man who couldn't take no for an answer." Amy's voice was quiet. "I don't remember her at all. I was 3. Everything I know is from photos and stories. Now I have this, the end of her story. But I still don't have her." "You have her in other ways," Tran said gently. "Your grandmother Helen raised you with love. That was your mother's legacy." "What about his daughter?" Emma asked. "Does she know?" "Yes, Jessica Brennan. She provided the DNA sample that confirmed the match. She wanted you to know she's sorry." Emma and Amy looked at each other. "Can we meet her?" March 19th, 2024. Press conference. The sheriff stood at the podium. Local news cameras, print journalists. "Today we're announcing the resolution of a 43-year-old cold case. On October 18th, 1980, Claire Marie Hartley was murdered. For over 4 decades, this case remained unsolved. Through forensic genetic genealogy, we have identified her killer, David William Brennan, age 24 at the time, stationed at China Lake Naval Weapons Center. Mr. Brennan died in 2020. There will be no prosecution, but we wanted Claire's family to have answers. Brennan's 1980 photo appeared on the screen. Emma and Amy sat in the back. They'd declined to speak, just needed to witness. Afterward, a woman approached, early 30s, nervous. "Are you Claire's daughters?" Emma turned. "Yes." "I'm Jessica Brennan, David Brennan's daughter." The room seemed to stop. "I don't know what to say," Jessica said, voice shaking. "I'm sorry doesn't begin to cover it. I'm sorry for what he did. I'm sorry you grew up without your mother. I'm sorry I didn't know him well enough to see what he was capable of." Emma studied her. Younger, connected by violence and blood and secrets. "It's not your fault," Emma said. "I keep thinking there should have been signs." Amy shook her head. "You were a baby when it happened. And even later, how could you have known?" "What was she like?" Jessica asked. "Your mother?" Emma's eyes filled. "I barely remember. I was 5. But our grandmother said she sang off-key in the car, that she made everything feel safe." "What about him?" Amy asked. Jessica looked at the floor. "Absent. Even when he was physically there, he wasn't really present. My mother said he couldn't form connections the way other people do. I thought he was just distant. Now I understand it was something deeper." They stood there, 3 women, connected by one man's violence. "Do you hate him?" Jessica asked. Emma thought. "I don't know. I've hated the idea of him for 43 years. Now I know his name, his face, but he's been dead 4 years. There's nothing to hate but a ghost." "Does knowing help?" "Ask me in a year." Amy looked at Jessica. "Are you okay? This can't be easy for you." "I'm in therapy, trying to understand how I'm connected to this, but not responsible for it." "You're not responsible," Emma said firmly. "You didn't choose him. You didn't choose what he did." Jessica nodded. "If you ever want to talk, I'm here." "I know that sounds strange, but—" "It's not strange," Amy said. "We're all trying to make sense of this." They stood there another moment. Then Jessica handed them a card with her phone number. "I mean it, if you need anything." Then she left. Based on evidence, witness testimony, military records, and psychological analysis, this is the most likely reconstruction of October 17, 1980. David Brennan signed out of China Lake at 18:17 hours, Friday, October 17th. Drove his 1978 Dodge Aspen south on Highway 395, then west on the 405 to Van Nuys. 2-hour drive. Arrived around 8:30 p.m. He'd been doing this for 4 months, every other weekend. Drive to Los Angeles, go to Dempsey's, watch Claire. In his mind, he was courting her, being patient, showing dedication. He'd been raised to believe persistence paid off, that no meant not yet, that women needed convincing. He didn't understand that no meant no. He sat at his usual spot, ordered beer, watched her work. Around midnight he tried again, waited until she walked past. "Can I talk to you?" She came over, keeping the bar between them. "What?" "I was thinking maybe we could get coffee. After your shift. Just talk. I've told you before, I'm not interested. You don't even know me." "I don't want to know you. I've been clear about that." In his mind, this was unreasonable, irrational. He'd done everything right, been respectful, patient. Why couldn't she see that? "Everyone deserves a chance. I've given you my answer, multiple times. It won't change." She walked away. He sat there, something hardening inside him. He paid his tab at 12:45, left the bar. But he didn't leave the parking lot. He sat in his car, back row, engine off, waited. The psychology is important here. Brennan wasn't driven by rage or hatred. He was driven by a fundamental inability to understand rejection. In his worldview, he'd followed all the rules. He'd been patient, respectful, persistent. Claire should have said yes. Her refusal didn't compute. The bar closed. Staff left. He watched Claire walk out with Rita, watched Rita drive away, watched Claire walk toward her car, alone, in the dark. He got out. She heard footsteps, turned. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to talk to you, away from everyone else." "I told you inside. I'm not interested." He stepped closer. "You've been avoiding me for months." "Because I'm not interested. How many times do I have to say it?" "Why not? I've done everything right." "You've done everything I told you not to do. You've ignored every no I've given you." She turned to unlock her car. He grabbed her arm. "Don't touch me." She yanked away. He grabbed her shoulder. "Just listen. Let go." His hand covered her mouth. She bit down, hard. He felt her teeth break skin. Blood filled her mouth. Pain shot through his hand. He jerked back. Then instinct took over. Not thought, just reaction. Both hands around her throat. Squeezing, she fought, clawed at his face, his neck. Her nails dug deep furrows in his skin. He'd have scratches for weeks. But he didn't let go. 2 minutes, maybe less. She went limp. He stood there, breathing hard, looking at her body on the asphalt. For a moment, what did I just do? Then, can't leave her here. He opened his trunk, lifted her, surprisingly light, laid her inside, closed the trunk, got in the driver's seat, started driving, north on the 405, east on Highway 395, toward Ridgecrest, toward China Lake. He knew these roads, drove them every weekend. Around 4:15 a.m. he found the spot. Empty stretch of highway, no cars, no houses, just desert. He pulled over, opened the trunk, lifted Claire out, laid her on the shoulder, not roughly, almost carefully, looked at her one last time, then got back in his car, drove to China Lake, signed in at 05:48 hours, within his Liberty window, went to his barracks, showered, bandaged his bleeding hand, told his roommate he'd cut it on a car engine, burned his bloody clothes in a barrel behind the motor pool that afternoon. Monday morning, work, electronics repair, lunch in the mess hall, football talk with other techs. No one suspected. He never went back to Dempsey's, never talked about the bartender again. When Bobby Kim asked what happened with the girl, Brennan said, "It didn't work out." And in his mind, that was true. It hadn't worked out. She'd been unreasonable. He'd done what he had to do. He felt no guilt, no remorse, just mild frustration that his plan hadn't succeeded. That's what made him dangerous. Not rage, not passion, just the complete absence of empathy. David Brennan lived 40 more years, honorably discharged October 1982, excellent marks, command recommendation, moved to San Diego, worked electronics repair at a small shop, met Angela Morrison, the shop owner's daughter. She thought he was quiet but stable. They married in 1984. She left him in 1989. "He was like living with furniture," she told her sister. "Physically there, but not really present." He moved to Florida in 1991, got another repair job, met Patricia Davis at a hardware store. She thought he was shy, reserved, a good man. They married in 1991, had Jessica in 1992. Patricia tried for 13 years to reach him, to break through whatever wall he'd built. "It's like he's missing something," she told her therapist in 2003. "Like there's a component that everyone else has, and he was built without it." They divorced in 2005. Jessica lived with Patricia, saw David every other weekend. "Do you love me?" Jessica asked him once when she was 16. Long pause, then, I suppose so. You suppose. I don't feel things the way other people do. What does that mean? I don't know. I've never understood it. After Jessica turned 18, contact dwindled. Birthday calls, Christmas cards. He retired in 2017, moved to a retirement community in St. Petersburg, one-bedroom unit, no decorations, no photos, just a TV and a crossword puzzle book. He died watching the news on November 3rd, 2020. Heart attack. The staff found him the next morning. 14 people at the funeral. Jessica arranged everything. He left no will, no personal effects of value, no indication he'd ever killed anyone, just the mundane accumulation of a life lived without attachment. 6 months after the press conference, Emma received a letter, Tampa postmark. She opened it. Dear Emma and Amy, I've been in therapy for 6 months now, working through what it means to be his daughter. My therapist says I need to separate his actions from my identity. I'm trying. I went through everything he left behind. I was looking for something, a diary, a confession, any sign that he felt guilt. I found nothing, just old electronics manuals and Navy commendations, and one notebook with a single line written after the murder. Some things can't be fixed, some circuits stay broken. That's it. That's all he left. I've been thinking about what that means. Was he talking about himself? About what he'd done? Or was it just a random thought about electronics? I'll never know. I wanted you to know that I think about your mother. I looked up everything I could find. The newspaper articles, her photo. I wanted to know who she was beyond the victim in a case file. She was real. She had dreams. She loved you. And my father took that away. I can't undo it. I can't make it right. But I can witness it. I can acknowledge what was lost. I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but I'm sorry anyway. Dear Jessica, thank you for writing. It means more than you know. We don't blame you. We never have. You're not responsible for what your father did. We've been thinking about your mother, too. Not our mother. Yours. Patricia. She raised you alone after the divorce. That can't have been easy. We're all daughters of people who did their best with what they had. Your mother. Our grandmother. They raised us with love despite the pain. Maybe that's the legacy we carry. Not the violence, not the absence, but the love that survived despite everything. We'd like to meet for coffee, really talk, not just about this, about who we are beyond this connection. Are you ever in California? Emma and Amy. 3 months later, Jessica flew to Los Angeles. They met at a cafe in Pasadena. Awkward at first, 3 women connected by tragedy, but strangers in every other way. But they talked, really talked, about their mothers, their childhoods, the weight of carrying stories they didn't choose. I used to think I was damaged by association, Jessica said, like his DNA made me capable of the same things. You're not him, Emma said. DNA doesn't determine who you are. I know that intellectually, but emotionally? It takes time, Amy said. We spent our whole lives defined by what happened to our mother. 43 years as the daughters of the murdered woman. Now we get to decide who we are beyond that. They talked for 3 hours, exchanged numbers, promised to stay in touch. And they did. Not often, not intensely, but regularly. Birthday messages, holiday cards, occasional calls when the weight felt too heavy. 3 women, bound by violence, building something else. Not family, not exactly friendship, but connection, witness, the acknowledgement that they'd all survived something that should have destroyed them. Some cases don't end with trials. Some end with DNA and family trees and evidence that waited 43 years for technology to exist. Claire Marie Hartley was 23 when she died. She had 2 daughters, a mother, a job, dreams. She was strangled by a man who couldn't process rejection. Her body was dumped in the desert like she never mattered. For 43 years, no one knew who killed her. Now they do. David William Brennan, Navy electronics technician, married twice. 1 daughter, lived in Florida, died watching television, felt nothing, no trial, no confession, no accountability in the traditional sense. Just a name, a photo, a closed case file, and 3 women, Emma, Amy, Jessica, learning that justice isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's just truth, sometimes it's just knowing, and sometimes it's finding connection in the ruins of violence, building something new from broken pieces. That's the story, not the one anyone wanted, but the one they got. And maybe, with time, that will be enough. Amy works with trauma survivors, helps people process grief and loss, turns her pain into purpose. Jessica volunteers at a women's shelter, helps survivors of domestic violence rebuild their lives. 3 women, carrying the weight, building the future. That's Claire's legacy. Not the violence that ended her life, but the love that survived despite everything. Some stories don't have happy endings, but they have survivals, they have witnesses, they have women who refuse to let violence be the final word. And maybe that's enough.